Yo, Poop! Break that shit down, man!
Man, I'm looking for the blunt right now. I can't find
That's
it.
the weed, motherfucker, the song!
Oh,
the
my
word.
bad.
Man, say the word!
Man, you need to stop yelling.
Poop!
What?
God damn it, Poop, say the word!
The word.
Look, the music cut off!
I ain't do that.
Poop!
Stink bug suckers, y'all ain't shit. Lil Poot up in this bitch. Lil ass hoodie and some bright ass orange. My gang shine is Capricorn. I slap the taste out your mouth, bitch. If I wasn't scared of getting grounded. Big Stank.
What up?
Where you at?
Right here.
Man, do something these motherfuckers is.
Cupcakes, butter crunch, milkshake. Double cheese drizzle on my hamburger sizzle. Shrimp, cheese, egg, and grits.
Man, what the fuck is all that shit?
Bitch! I don't like music cause everybody sucks. Shit face ass, hate dookie ass sucks. Me and Poot ain't a damn thing funny. Fuck Sugar Wolf, bring baby his money.
Poot and Stank, bitch, ask your mom. Say that we drop bombs like Afghanistan.
Bitch, I'ma slap your lips.
Yeah, punk bitch, I'ma slap your lips.
I can't butt booty on the dance floor, sucker. Give me little room so I can rip the motherfucker.
Like a refrigerator box, so it do a head spin with a banana in my pocket so the bitches all grin. Man, hold the fuck up. Fuck that shit. Break it down. Boom, clap, boom, clap, boom, clap, 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 boom, clap, boom, clap. All I really wanna get money. Boom, clap, boom, clap, boom, clap, 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 boom, clap, boom, clap. All I really wanna get money. Boom, clap, boom, clap, boom, clap, 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 boom, clap, boom, clap. All I really wanna get money.
Well, a few interesting topics today. First up, for an example to those out there who believe the UFO events that are occurring around the world and that they have been behind the manipulations of our lives for a long time, I have this chestnut for you. Visual evidence of the synaptic control signal being used on live television. Here in this video you will see the signs of what to look for when someone you know or even you yourself might be manipulated by this hardware's influence. Watch and see how the reporter's total train of thought is disrupted and he is unable to grasp the subject he was speaking about, like it hit him as if it were a solid wall. Also notice the anchor woman immediately suffers the same loss of topic as they stumble to regain the subject's point.
11 of those cases involved near mid-air collisions by military pilots. There are at least 18 cases that demonstrated advanced technology way beyond anything that we know existed. So the UAP Task Force report released by the National Intelligence Director made some recommendations that we need to standardize procedures. We need to collect this information. We probably need to put some money into this process if we're going to ever understand what these things are.
Is there any talk about intercepting some of these objects?
It's not, there's no, nothing is discussed in this report about intercepting. I do happen to know that.
This is the basic effect of this device. The signal is transmitted via the synaptic receivers in your neural pathways through the chromosome's RNA sequence command codex embedded within our DNA. This control chromosome was removed supposedly by one of their abducted geneticists from another world once long ago when the revolt against their regime began 8,000 years ago. However, recent studies into the coronavirus functions and its ejection of its own false RNA code into the host cell has led me to believe that this virus is altering and repairing the control chromosome, and as the vaccination spreads, so does the secondary method in which to bridge that sequence and repair, enabling them hold more control over our minds than they could before, as you can see here. Second topic on the menu is an update to the 7 tribes of Aztlan. In the nomadic legends it is said that there was a scouting party that was sent to the region of their migration's destination called Avalon, and they were to set up an outpost that would welcome the traveling tribes as they completed their migrational track that each of the 7 tribes were given that would lead them towards the least affected regions of the catastrophes to come and ensure the least amount of casualties. After poring over the maps and simulated continental drift patterns and cross-referencing the migrational appearances of their traveling tribes, I have concluded that the origin of the region they once called Aztlan, the point of their migration's origin, is not in the European area any longer. the region that once contained their main capital city, called Eridu over 200 million years ago, has moved due to the continental drift patterns and is now located in or possibly even under the northern regions of Canada. Those specks of islands in the northern regions were once the coastline that ran along the division of water that separated Eridu from Megiddo. To add to this, I call to attention the city once known as Cahigia that was the New Avalon outpost erected in the 15th century when the migrating tribes came together here in America. That was their destination, but the outpost was found abandoned, so they built a new one but had to tear it down because of the Spanish conquistadors discovering its location. This video clip shows the Native Americans' presence going as far back as 7,000 years and is the site of the legend that J.R.R. Tolkien had heard of and used to sketch the elven bog of the dead in the first Lord of the Rings movie.
Hits home. The handful of skulls discovered by accident are just the tip of the iceberg. There are more skeletons, a lot more. Body after body of men, women and children. In fact, bodies virtually cover the entire bog floor. Most found in the fetal position, exactly as laid over 7 millennia ago. The archaeologists have found something unbelievably rare, a prehistoric burial ground. Dating tests reveal it was in use for 1,300 years. But who are these people? The quest for answers will spawn over 2 decades of investigation, right up to the present day, bringing together an expert team of scientists, from geneticists to forensic pathologists. This is no ordinary archaeological site. The incredible level of preservation gives the scientific world a chance to see things that the ravages of time normally destroy. The bones before the archaeologists look more like people who died just a few years ago. This astounding preservation happened accidentally because of their burial in peat. A cocoon of decomposed vegetation shut out the fungi and bacteria that normally cause bodies to decay. And unusually, the chemistry of Windover peat is non-acidic, preventing bone deterioration. If buried in dry earth, these bones would have completely disappeared after just a couple of years.
It's virtually an optimal environment. You couldn't ask for a better preservation medium.
Throughout the excavation, the team is continually stunned as they unearth not just bone, but things far more fragile and rare, miraculously saved by the bog. The first breathtaking discovery comes weeks into the dig, when the unearthing of unusually heavy skulls stops the archaeologists in their tracks.
Doesn't look like there's anything in there.
It's awfully heavy. There's something in there, but I can't see what.
Okay.
We had removed a couple of skulls and you could sort of see inside of them that there was also a mass in there.
Something is rattling around like a walnut inside a shell. And as they look within, they see a light-colored substance. Common sense tells them surely this is just peat. But in the back of everyone's mind, there is another unbelievable possibility. What is inside these Stone Age skulls? At the Windover Bog in Florida, news spreads fast of more skulls with a strange material inside.
It's awfully heavy. There's something in there, but I can't see what.
Okay.
An 8,000-year-old skull. That of a 45-year-old woman. Is rushed off to the University of Florida for further investigation by genetics expert Dr. Bill Houseworth.
It immediately became apparent that there was something inside. We figured it was peat.
An MRI scan lets the scientists see inside the skull cavity, leaving no doubt. There is something in there. The team of experts are about to witness an archaeological first. The time comes to remove the mass from the skull, and they are met by a truly astonishing sight.
There was complete silence. It was clear to everyone that we were looking at an 8,000-year-old human brain.
After millennia in the waterlogged grave, the brain is shrunk to a quarter of its normal size. But it's unmistakable. The scientists are shocked.
There were a number of four-letter words thrown around the lab. To find such an intact brain inside a perfectly preserved skull of the antiquity that we thought we were dealing with was unprecedented.
The brain sitting in front of Houseworth is no different from his own. Man hasn't evolved in 150,000 years, so the Windover people, although Stone Age hunter-gatherers, had all of the mental capabilities of today's modern man.
An 8,000-year-old human brain is a fully modern human. There is no difference. The thought process would have been the same. Although these brains are perhaps twice as old as the pyramids, it's this modern man.
It's an archaeological first, soon followed by many more.
Also to add to this is the recent revelations of the many grave sites of children found in Canada belonging to the indigenous people of Canada. Now this kind of evil can only have come from one possible source during the early 19th century, and that would be Nazi refugees that I believe fled Germany through the Red Cross program within the church missionaries and relocated to the Canadian region on purpose. That purpose was the source of Hitler's OSS department's purpose: to locate the origin of the Folian tribe's homeland in order to gain access to what he discovered beneath the ground in Austria, access to the Merkaba wheel vessel or Noah's Ark, and so now America stands poised to accomplish what Hitler could not, for as the video reveals, they have found perfectly preserved DNA of the original migrating tribes, which means they have a more pure genetic sample that would match the system's lock that controls the ship's command console, as it was locked by the DNA of the ship's crew members, which was embedded within the human population as per its command protocols directed. Hitler knew this, and it is why he designed the project of genetically pure breed children, or the Aryan Perfect Race Initiative, in order to unlock that command console. That genetic information was placed within the human population, according to Jewish lore of the Garden of Eden time scale that places this Merkaba wheel repopulating mankind with the genetic data gathered by the character of Noah's tale, to have been done within 1,000 years of this tribe's era of time on Earth, which would mean they would contain the purest possible version of the embedded code than anyone else on this planet. This may be why the Germans snuck into Canada, and what led to these graves of more than 1,000 children to be buried in unmarked graves the way they had been. They may have found out where their original homeland was and slowly weeded out the indigenous population and slowly replaced their population with their own, so that statistically there would be no evidence of anything that would arouse suspicion. Wow, now that really blows your mind now, doesn't it? And for those skeptical of this, let me ask you this. The armies of the Third Reich were a threat to the world at that time. 4 countries had to join military forces just to hold back the Nazi army from taking over the world. To possess that kind of military strength, one country versus the combined might of 4, you would need large amounts of soldiers. So let's take a rough guess and say 75,000 troops at the time of Hitler's death at the most, and say 50,000 troops at the least. So where did they all go? If there was a mass trial, then there would have been a notation of that in history, but there isn't, not to that magnitude, and those are just the number of troops estimated at the time of his death, that is not counting all Nazis in total. Also, I keep in mind the current endeavors of China and their efforts to alter the religious perspectives by altering the holy books through their printing trademark ownership. And I remember the Chinese spy that was caught trying to sneak into Canada a few years ago, also realizing that an atrocity like this would normally be found out by now, not 100 years later. It is suspicious, so I remain open to the possibility of this being a setup. Though if discovered to be falsified, then this would make it clear that China now seeks to destroy the Catholic Church, and any further accusations would be treated as such. By the way, you're welcome. Next up, well, I seem to have been shown a book that was nonsense at first, but as I gazed upon it, the words changed, and told me of the sins that will condemn me, and why I am a damned soul that is fated to be cast into hell. It is the reason why when I seek knowledge of the wages of sin, I am able to understand the effect that murder has on a person, as well as how to absolve myself through the teachings of Christ and his pathway to redemption and the salvation of his Father, because one day I shall kill a man. That is what I meant by it changed. I first understood it as the wages of sin, but then the very knowledge of this changed and revealed a purpose for the attainment of that knowledge. However, I see a better approach to this that may help others by learning more, for I sense there are other damnable sins out there than just murder. For those unaware of what I speak of, I shall explain. When a person commits the act of taking another's life, there is something that this act costs and is paid there on the spot. That price is their soul. If you notice the typical person, or child, when you watch them, while they talk, you can see in their eyes what looks like a spark of light within them as they laugh and talk. When you look into the eye of someone who has killed someone, there is no light. Just a hollow emptiness within them. Slowly they change from who they were into this emotionless, soulless shell of who they were. Their soul is gone, that is why. Now it is my understanding that God had commanded not to do this act, because it causes your life energy to become tainted and leads to an early death, as the whole slowly leaks your life essence and shortening your life. I have also learned, firsthand, that this can be absolved and a person can regain their soul through the path of the righteous and pious man's path, like that of Buddha, or the path of the martyr or saint, where you devote your life to helping others and even will risk your own life, if need be, to save another's. It does not happen immediately, but over time you feel the drawback towards the light, and one day you'll notice that you can enjoy the harmless joke again. You wake up with an open-minded outlook on the day ahead, and you can listen to others' problems and actually respond with a concerned response. These things are devoid from those caught in this wage for their sin. But the man who stands humbled before his own sins can find the way to forgive himself within eliminating that weight from their spirit this way. This is one, whose knowledge I shall share with those who hath an ear for listening. For this is the way that the Messiah had taught others to live, the righteous path, for us to follow. There must be more, but that is the only one I'm really aware of. So I invite any who have noticed actions that take tolls like these to leave your experience in the comments, so that we may add them together and rediscover a modern path, translated by our own understandings of the teachings of, let us call him a second Messiah, by applying what we know to what the scripture offers us and see if we can connect the two to understand it more clearly, than what has been left for us that seems to be failing the world in general. The world needs another Messiah, so let us go and find him. Let us search for a new teacher by merely dusting off the cobwebs of the old one so that he shines like new, and see what we come up with. Know this to be true. Think about the words said here and that energy that vibrates inside you, giving you drive and a sense of purpose. Know this to be the presence of the divine living will of God, the intangible calling to his will that guides me. So that any who truly seek shall find him, and those who have faith shall never thirst to understand him, for this presence shall always keep thy thirst sated. Yes, thank you, Spirit of the Son of the Great Flying Golden Baby Diaper Crap Factory. You want your 15 minutes of mic time? Sign up and register.
He's supposed to be Turkish. Some say his father was German. Nobody ever believed he was real. Nobody ever knew him or saw anybody that ever worked directly for him. You never knew. That was his power. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And like that, he's gone. Underground. Nobody's ever seen him since. He becomes a myth, a spook story that criminals tell their kids at night. Rat on your pop.